Hi everyone, welcome to this Chinese writing lesson where we will be looking into some of the basic Chinese radicals. These are the building blocks of Chinese characters, and learning them will really help you understand how to write in Chinese step by step. Now, I want to mention something right off the bat. Please forgive me if you find my handwriting a bit messy. It's quite difficult to write neatly using a trackpad, but I'm doing my best to show you how these characters should be written. If you have any suggestions or tips on how I could improve, I would love to hear them. I really appreciate your feedback. So one thing I want to explain is why I'm showing you how to write personally instead of using computer-generated videos. Sometimes, as teachers, we need to show you the traditional way of writing Chinese. There are certain hidden tips, gestures, and writing techniques that a computer might miss. So, by showing you directly, I can point out these little details that will make your writing more accurate and natural. These lessons are here to help you kickstart your Chinese writing journey. We are focusing on how to write some of the basic Chinese words and radicals. But don't worry, this is just the beginning. I've also included my book, 200 Plus Essential Chinese Words, which is part of this course. So be sure to download it and start practicing after the lessons. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. And now, let's get started. Hi, and welcome to the frequently asked questions section of our Chinese writing lessons. As you embark on your journey to mastering Chinese characters, I know you might have some common questions about the writing, the stroke order, and the use of Chinese on electronic devices. Learning to write Chinese can feel challenging, but with the right guidance, it becomes an exciting and rewarding experience. The questions we will address today will help you to clarify the importance of stroke order, the differences between the handwritten and computer generated Chinese, and why mastering the basics will help you set up for success, whether you are writing by hand or typing on your phone. Okay, now let's dive into these questions to ensure you have a strong foundation and a clear understanding on how to improve your Chinese writing skills. The first question, must we follow the stroke order when writing Chinese characters? The answer is yes. Chinese stroke orders are like spelling in English. The stroke order ensures correct writing and it improves the writing balance, the speed, and the accuracy. Most importantly, it is essential for character recognition on digital device. So basically, many Chinese input systems on your phones or computers, they detect characters based on the stroke order. So that's why it is vital for digital writing as well. Otherwise, they don't know what you are trying to write. Question number 2. Why is it important to learn the characters themselves if I use a pinging keyboard on my phone or computer? Well, if you look at the bottom left, right, I type in N and H. I want to write ni hao. So you see, and my keyboard, it pops out a list of possible characters to choose from. So that means if you don't know what the characters look like or understand their meanings, it can be very hard to select the correct one. So you need to recognize the correct characters from that list of suggestions. Knowing the characters help you to choose the correct one, avoiding mistakes. Without this knowledge, you may end up selecting the wrong word from the list, leading to errors in communication. Therefore, if you learn to write the characters by hand, this will deepens your understanding and it ensures that you are choosing the correct characters every time. Why does Chinese writing on a computer look different from handwritten characters? Well, Chinese writing on a computer or phone uses specific fonts that prioritize readability, and uniformity, such as the simplified song or the kaiti. These fonts don't necessarily capture the beauty and the structure of handwritten characters. For example, characters like duo and chu look more uniform in the computer generated fonts, making it very difficult to see the visual differences between the top and the bottom parts. As you can see, the duo on the left and the duo on the right. In handwritten Chinese, the top of the character is often slightly smaller than the bottom, adding the balance and the elegance. So it is quite important to learn from a teacher or native writers, or you can observe how we write to appreciate these hidden tips. Question 4, the most important question. How many Chinese characters should I learn to start writing basic sentences? And the answer is ta da 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 200 to 300 words. To write basic sentences, you should learn about 200 to 300 essential Chinese characters. This will give you enough vocabulary to express common ideas and form simple sentences. Well, as you start to build your solid foundation with key characters, this will help you to recognize and write more complex words over time. What is the difference between the traditional and the simplified Chinese characters? Well, simplified Chinese characters are commonly used in mainland China and Singapore. They have fewer strokes compared to the traditional Chinese, which is used in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and other regions. Both systems convey the same meanings, but the simplified Chinese was designed to make the characters easier to learn and write. So it is very important for you to choose which system to learn, plan to use your Chinese. Are you planning to go to Singapore? Are you planning to go to Taiwan, Hong Kong, or mainland China? How long does it take to learn to write Chinese characters fluently? Well, learning to write Chinese fluently depends on how much time you invest. For beginners, it might take 3 to 6 months of consistent practice. I repeat, consistent practice. Mastery requires time, so daily practice is recommended. You need to focus on how to improve your accuracy and stroke order before aiming for speed. So let's start with getting the foundation right, then we aim for writing faster. First learn how to walk, then you can run. Do all Chinese characters have meanings by themselves? The answer is yes. Most characters have stand-alone meanings. However, many characters are also used in combination with others to form compound words. For example, the character 火, 火 means fire, but it can combine with other characters like 车 to form 火车, that means train. Fire and car, that makes train, 火车. Are Chinese characters written top to bottom or left to right? Traditionally, top to bottom, right to left, especially in calligraphy. Like this. Okay, now modern Chinese is left to right, just like English. Both styles are acceptable depending on the context. Why do some characters look similar and how do I differentiate them? Some characters share similar components, but there are often differences in stroke order or position that distinguish them. These shared components are called radicals. It helps to indicate the meaning or pronunciation. So, if you want to differentiate between the similar looking characters, practice is key. Pay attention to the number of strokes and their placement within the character. Over time, you will naturally start to notice these differences. Let's use the example of 10, which is 10. It looks like a cross, isn't it? 10. Now, we have added one stroke at the bottom. 是, it become a noble man. 是. And we have 土, which is soil, ground, or earth. Let's see what are their differences. So the 是, the top line is longer than the bottom line. This is 是, whereas 土, let's use a different color. The top line is shorter than the bottom line. Different strokes, different placement, and did you notice? As long as you pay attention to the strokes and their placement and their length, then you will start to notice the difference. Why are radicals important in Chinese characters? Radicals are like the building blocks of Chinese characters. They often provide clues about the meaning or the pronunciation of a character. So when you learn them, it helps you to memorize and understand the characters. So for example, if you look at the radical on your left, right? There's this three dot. This is the 三点水. That means it's the 3 water drops. When you see this kind of radical, you will immediately know that it has something to relate to water. Is it necessary to practice Chinese characters by hand, or can I just use a keyboard? While typing is convenient, especially with the pinyin input, handwriting practice is crucial for truly understanding the structure of characters and committing them to memory. Handwriting also helps to improve your ability to recognize characters in different contexts. Additionally, the stroke order is critical when you are using certain Chinese input systems on the electronic devices that solely rely on detecting the stroke patterns. An interesting question. Why do some characters have multiple pronunciations? As you can see, the word 好 can be the third tone and it can be the fourth tone. So some Chinese characters can be known as the 多音字, which is multi-syllable characters. They have different pronunciations depending on the context. For example, the 好, it means good. And 好, it means to like. So understanding the context of the sentence will help you to know which pronunciation is correct. How do I improve my Chinese handwriting? Well, improving Chinese handwriting requires consistency and practice. So start by focusing on the proper stroke order and ensuring each character is well balanced within a square space. In this case, the grid paper can be very helpful and useful for spacing. And most importantly, you can watch and observe how experienced writers form their characters. This will teach you how to write with the proper posture and balance. And over time, you will start to develop your own style. But mastering the basics is the key to beautiful handwriting. I noticed that some of my Chinese friends write their stroke endings differently from the basics. Now I'm confused. What should I do? Well, my dear, it is very common to see slight variations in stroke endings, especially from the native speakers who have developed their own personal style over time. However, you as the learner, it is important to stick to the basic standard stroke order and structure. Mastering the fundamentals first ensures that your writing is clear, it is balanced, and it is easily understood by others. Once you have built a strong foundation, you can start to develop your own style just like your Chinese friends. But now, focus on following the basic rules to avoid confusions. Once you are confident, you can start exploring your own writing style. Once again, thank you for learning with us. Chinese writing is an art that improves with practice. The more you write, the more confident and skilled you will become. So keep practicing the stroke orders and characters. Remember, the stroke order is like the spelling of Chinese characters. So when you master it, you will write efficiently and beautifully. This foundation will also help you when you are using Chinese on electronic devices. And this is just the beginning. There are over few thousand Chinese characters, but with consistent writing, you will become proficient faster than you think. So keep exploring more characters and try writing out sentences. Don't forget, you have the access to the 200 plus essential Chinese book, which is included for free with this course. Use it to reinforce what you have learned and expand your character knowledge. Hi, and welcome to the fascinating world of Chinese characters. In this lesson, we will embark on an exciting journey to explore the foundation of the Chinese writing system. Chinese characters, known as Hanzi, are not just symbols. They are a unique blend of art, history, and language. Each character carries its own meaning, often representing ideas, objects, and concepts. The Chinese characters are the foundation of the Chinese language. Unlike alphabetical systems, Chinese writing is logographic. That means each character represents a word or a meaningful part of a word. The foundation of Chinese calligraphy and character formation lies in the 8 basic strokes, each carrying its unique form and significance. These strokes are not only the building blocks of Chinese characters, but also a representation of the artistic beauty embedded in the language. So, whether you are learning to write Chinese for communication purposes or to appreciate its calligraphic art, understanding these 8 strokes is essential. Each stroke contributes to the structure and balance of the characters. Let's start with the heng, which is the horizontal stroke. Heng, it is a horizontal line written from left to right. Heng, left to right. Now let's try shu. Shu, it is the vertical stroke from top to bottom. Shu, top to bottom. Let's try the 撇. 撇, it is a diagonal line written from the top right to the bottom left. So basically, when you start off on top, you are dragging the line from top right to the bottom left. 撇. Our right falling stroke, which is the na. It is dragging the line from top left to the bottom right. Na. Top left to bottom right. And we have the ti, which is the rising stroke. So you start off from bottom left and you flick it upwards to the right. Ti. And we have the dot, the 点, a small dot or small dash. So we basically write it from top to bottom. 点, from top to bottom. Basically, you're just giving them a little dash. And we have the hook, the go. Now, please bear in mind, the go, we have two versions. One, we have the vertical go, just like that. We drag it from top to bottom and we flick it like a hook. And we have the horizontal hook, from left to right, and we flick it with a hook. So, the vertical hook and the horizontal hook. Go hook. Finally, let us talk about the turning stroke, which is the 折. 折, it is a stroke that changes direction, usually at a 90-degree angle, and it is written within a single continuous movement. So when you look at it, it's like an L. And we have different types of turning strokes. We have the horizontal to vertical turn, and we have the vertical to horizontal turn. The turning stroke, which is the 折, is commonly found in many Chinese characters, and it comes with various forms. Hi and welcome. In today's lesson, we will be looking at the difference between the simplified and the traditional Chinese. When learning Chinese, one of the first things you will encounter is the difference between simplified and traditional Chinese characters. These two writing systems represent the same language but have evolved differently over time and across regions. Let's look at the differences between the simplified and the traditional forms of some common characters. In this case, love, I. So, on the left-hand side, you see the simplified version. The right-hand side, you see the traditional version. Now, you will notice in the traditional character I, the central component includes a heart. This directly represents the concept of love. Now, in the simplified version, it is being replaced by 友, which is friend. And the character is simplified overall by removing a few strokes. Let's look at the word 马, horse. In the traditional character, 马 is more intricate with several strokes representing the horse manes and legs. Look at these. Whereas in the simplified version, many of these strokes have been removed, leaving just the essential shape to convey the meaning of the horse, and it reduced the character from 10 to just 3, making it quicker to write. Imagine, you just write thus and thus. Quicker, easier. Let's talk about the general patterns in simplification. Now, in general, you will find out that there are stroke reduction. Simplified characters often have fewer strokes. This makes them quicker to write and easier to learn. And we have the component simplification. Complex radicals or components in traditional characters are replaced with simpler forms in simplified characters. And lastly, we have some omissions. Some elements in traditional characters are entirely omitted in the simplified version, especially when they are not deemed essential to the meaning. So this leads to the question, why the difference matters? If you like the traditional characters, obviously it is for cultural context. Traditional characters retain more historical and cultural elements, often with deeper meanings embedded in the radicals and components. But if you like the simplified version, it is because of practicality. Simplified characters are designed to increase literacy rates and make writing easier, which is why they are widely adopted in the educational systems. In summary, the simplified Chinese was developed in the 1950s and 60s to promote literacy in mainland China. The government simplified the number of strokes in many characters, making them easier to write and recognize. And most importantly, simplified Chinese is used primarily in mainland China, Singapore, and Malaysia. On the other hand, traditional Chinese retains the original, more complex characters that have been used for centuries. This form is still being used in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and among many overseas Chinese communities. So, understanding the difference between these two forms is crucial for navigating written Chinese, especially if you plan to travel, live, or do business in different Chinese speaking regions. One of the unique aspects of learning Chinese is mastering the art of writing its characters. Unlike alphabetical scripts, Chinese characters are composed of a series of strokes that must be written in a specific order. This is known as stroke order. In this lesson, we will explore the fundamental rules of stroke order, such as writing from top to bottom, left to right, and completing the inside of a character before the outside. Mastering these rules, you will build a strong foundation for your Chinese writing skills and ensure that your characters are not only correct, but also elegant. Let's talk about the importance of stroke order. You may say, Jocelyn, I can write whatever I want to. Why must I use the stroke order? Well, understanding and following stroke order is more than just a matter of tradition. It's essential for several reasons. Number one, the legibility. Proper stroke order ensures that your characters are clear and recognizable, even to native speakers. So, when strokes are written in the correct sequence, the character takes on its intended shape and balance. Number two, the efficiency. Following the standard stroke order allows for smoother, faster, and more efficient writing. Over time, you will develop muscle memory, making it easy to write characters quickly and accurately. Number three, learning new characters. Stroke order serves as a guide for learning new characters. Once you understand the basic rules, you will find it easier to remember and reproduce unfamiliar characters. And lastly, using dictionaries and technology. Many Chinese dictionaries and digital input methods are designed around stroke order. Knowing the correct sequence can help you look up characters more easily and use the handwriting input on devices. Let's start off with the first rule, the top to bottom. Strokes are written from the top of the character down to the bottom. So using the example of 3, sun, we start from the top and we have the middle and lastly the bottom. The left to right rule. Always start off from the left to the right. The horizontal before vertical. Horizontal strokes are written before vertical strokes. Horizontal, vertical. Enclosures before contents. You write the outer enclosing strokes before the inner content. So I like to share with my students, it feels like as if you are building a room or a house, you have your windows built up, then you put your treasure inside, and lastly you close the door. Enclosures before content. So what happens if you encounter a nice character which have two boxes, for example, 回. Now, you will see there are two squares. So what happened? Thus, we call it the closed frames last. What does it mean? So when a character has an enclosing frame, the stroke inside the enclosure are written first. And lastly, we close the stroke outside. The diagonal strokes before horizontal and vertical strokes. So think to yourself, your pie and na will always go before horizontal and vertical strokes. Let's look at it again. This word san, which means umbrella, it is the perfect example of showing the diagonal strokes before horizontal and vertical strokes. So you will see the diagonal strokes that form the slanted parts of the umbrella are written first. Then the horizontal stroke that represents the top of the umbrella and the vertical stroke, it connects everything. Our last rule, center first before symmetrical sides. Using the example of 小, if a character has a central component flanked by symmetrical sides, the center is written first. We write the middle, left, then right. Awesome. Hi, and welcome to this lesson. Today we are going to show you some of the common radicals, which is the formation of Chinese characters. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to recognize, understand, and write some common radicals. So, first things first, what are radicals? Radicals are the components of the Chinese characters that often provide hints about their meaning or pronunciations. When you want to know what type of word it is, we have to look at the radicals. So more or less, it will show you some sort of hint. For example, if we have the ren, then you will know that it has some sort of human activities. If we have the 3 dots of water, then you know that this word has something to relate with water. So that's how radicals work. For example, let's look at the ren as I just mentioned. The ren means person, isn't it? So when we are looking at words such as the ni, we are talking about you. You are a human being, isn't it? So that's why we have the radical 人, and we have the 从, which is follow. When you want to follow someone, you are literally a person following another person. So that's why we have two 人. Okay, that's how it works. The radical 口, which is mouth. For example, we use the word 吃, which is eat. How do you eat? You use your mouth, isn't it? So that's why you will see we have the radical 口. Easy. Let's look at the radical 冰. 冰, it has something to do with water, isn't it? But now please take note there is two dots, okay? When you see that two dot, there's one dot here and then there's this rising stroke, okay? We know that this kind of words typically associated with frozen objects or cold related concepts. So for example, we have the word 冰. 冰 is what? It's frozen, it's ice. So that's why we only have two dots. Building on the previous concept of the two stroke is equivalent to ice related objects, now we want to talk about water, like water related stuff. So we would have three strokes instead of two. So the three stroke, one of them is like this, okay, down, and this one will be the rising stroke. Okay, so when you see words like these, okay, as I have shown you the example, we have river, which is 河, and 海, which is sea. Both of them have water. So that's why we have this radical. Okay. 火, which is fire. Anything that has to do with fire will have the fire radical. For example, we have the lamp, which is the 灯, and we have the 烧, which is the burn, okay, to burn something. So, as you can see, 火 in its normal form, okay, it is like this, right? Okay, we have this normal stroke, that normal drag, that slanting slope to the bottom right corner, where it is the radical form, you will see something like this. You will notice that the hole is being minimized. That is because you need to make space for the other parts of the component. One of the most common radical is 木, which is wood. Anything that has to do with wood will have this radical. We have the tree and then we have the woods. Okay, this is wood in normal form, but when it is in the radical form, you will notice that the 木, like I said, is being minimized. Same reason, that is because you need to make space for the other part of the component. So be careful when you are drawing those lines. Okay, and we have the 土, which is earth or soil or ground. Anything that has to do with the earth, the soil, the ground, or even location will have the word 土 somewhere in between the character. So this is 土, okay, in its normal form. But when we are talking about the radical, you see, we will shrink it, and instead of the long ending line, okay, it will turn to be a rising stroke. And we have the most common radical 女, woman. Anything that has to do with woman will have the 女. So let's see, when you write the 女 in normal form, it will be like this, okay? Our line here will be a little bit longer, okay? When it is in the radical form, Did you notice? Okay, so now our this line, it is a little bit shorter. That is because you need to make space for this part. Okay, so some of the most common words are ta, which is she, and ma, mother. Both of them are women. Okay, so yan, which is speech. Now, did you notice when we are writing the radical form, all of a sudden, instead of this one line, two line, three line, and the box, okay, it has become this one dot and this easy method, one line down and hook up. That is because we are turning the yen into a simplified version. And please note, all our lessons are in simplified Chinese. So when you want to write in traditional Chinese, yes, the traditional Chinese still have this yen as their radical. But when we are writing the yen in simplified form, we will be using this form. Okay, so when you are saying yan, obviously you have everything to do with speech. So that's why we have the 说, which is to speak, and 语, which is language. Everything that have to do with words and your mouth, we use yan, speech. I want to talk to you especially about the seeing radical because this is one of the most interesting radical. Now, seeing, okay, that has to do with your heart, your emotions, okay. However, when it is in the radical form, we have two different forms, either like this or like this. So both of them are called the seeing radical. However, one of them, it is the seeing underneath, and then the other one, it is the seeing by the side. Okay, so the seeing by the side, okay, which is like this, it is the simplified version of seeing. Okay, both of them have to do with the heart. So for example, we have nu, which is angry. Okay, the when you are angry, obviously your heart is involved. And the other thing is quiet. Quiet means quick. You are rushed. You want everything to be hasty. So that's where this radical comes from. When you learn this radical, more or less, it will give you some sort of clue as if what are the words are about. So you can think to yourself, okay, so it gives you some sort of hint, even though when you read some new words, then you will start to think to yourself, okay, I recognize this part. So because it have to deal with the heart, it have to deal with the water or the wood or whatever. So it gives you some sort of an understanding so you can guess more or less what does that word mean. One of the most important radical that I want to show you is the ch radical. The reason being, it is because in China, most signage are written in Chinese. So when you recognize these words, 车 and 车辆, you will know that this have something to do with car. Okay, so car, when it is in its normal form, you will see that it's like this. Okay, when it is in its radical form, just like every other radical, I just want to use a different color. Okay, so the posture, the stroke order would have some sort of slight changes. That is because you are preparing yourself to write the second half of the word. Okay, so by learning some of these basic radicals, it will give you some sort of clue for you to guess what are they trying to say in Mandarin Chinese. So it will help you to understand better and to predict the message. Now, let us start. How do you write these words in action? Hi, and welcome to this lesson. Today, we are going to be looking at common everyday words based on the radical 人. So today, we are going to learn the 单人旁. The radical 单人旁 is a fundamental component in many Chinese characters. It often indicates that the character has something to do with people or human activities. Let's start by writing the word 单人旁, which is 人 or human. Now we start off from the top and we connect it with a line in the middle. Let me just quickly show you. So from this side, okay, and we drag it down, and be mindful when you want to write this line. It's always gonna be somewhere in the middle. So depending on how you write it, as long as you get the proportion of more or less where is it's in the middle, then you start off from there. So let's see, how do you write that again? Awesome. Cool. Now let's build on and write the word 你. So we have the 单人旁 on the left and we have the 儿 on the right. Now, 单人旁 takes 1/3 of the box and the 儿 more or less 2/3 of the box. Cool. Now, few tips. When you start off with the second part, as long as your line does not exceed the 单人旁 starting point, okay, which is this side. Let me just draw you a line. As long as it does not exceed more or less this side, you are covered. It's fine. Okay, and the R, this line, as long as this starting point is more or less somewhere right here, which is the joining part of the 单人旁, then you should be fine. And this 小 is in the middle of this, somewhere in the middle. So you see, somewhere in this middle, then you can just draw a line right here and you have the hook. Then you finish off by left and right. Okay, cool. Now let's see, how do you write that again? Cool. Let's look at the word 他, which is very common in Mandarin Chinese. 他, it is he. Same thing, the 单人旁 on the left, and you have the 也 at the right side. Same procedure, we have two portions, 单人旁 1/3, and we have the 也, which takes 2/3 of the box. Now, let's look at this stroke here. So in your mind, just picture it, it's more or less in the middle of the box. You go slightly up and then you drag it down and you finish it with a hook. Awesome. Now, the second word is this one. It's a small vertical line, right? Okay. And we have the big stroke that looks similar to a hook, like a J in the opposite direction. And we drag it down and finish it up with a hook. Awesome. Now let's see, how do you write this again? 单人旁 Awesome. As long as you get the proportion right, so the writing won't look weird or ugly. Finally, let us look at the word men, which is a plural marker. So for example, if you want to say ni, when you add the word men, okay, ni means you, men means all of you. And ta, which means he, when you add the word men, it means they or them. Same thing, 单人旁. Okay, and we have the men, 1/3, 2/3. Now look at this dot. The dot must be more or less by the top corner. Okay, in this case, we see right here now, it's a little bit to the middle, right? That is because you want to make space for this line right here. Okay, so as long as it's not connected, please take note it is not connected. So make sure that you have make some space in between. And finally, our horizontal stroke and our vertical stroke, and we end off with a hook. Awesome. Let's see how do we do that again. 单人旁, a dot, a line, and a little curve and a hook at the end. Cool. Hi, and welcome to this course. Today, we are going to be focused on the common everyday words based on the radical being. Now, this radical is commonly found on the left side of characters and typically indicates if the character has something to do with ice, cold, or freezing stuff. Let's start by writing the bing. We start from the top left corner, and we have our bottom left corner. So you'll find that the dot on the top left corner is a little bit shorter than the bottom left corner. As long as you got the proportion, you should be fine. Let's continue and build on the word bing. Just now, the two strokes are just the vertical. Let's write the actual ice. Bing. Okay. Your vertical, 1/3, and your main character, 2/3. As you noticed just now, we write our vertical, top and bottom, and then we start off by writing the middle stroke. It's very easy because you need to picture yourself that it is in the middle of the box, and you end off with a hook right there. Then you start off with your left hand side and your right hand side. Cool. Now let's see how do you write that again. Your verticals, middle, left, and right. Let's continue with 冻. That means it's frozen, it's freeze. Vertical, vertical, and the second part of the words. Now, few tips. Here is the starting point of the vertical, right? So when you want to start off with your second part of the letter, make sure that this line does not exceed the starting point of your vertical. Okay, and then the word dong, like this. You see that it's a little bit to the left, so don't start off in the middle. And then our vertical, which is going to be in the middle, left and right. Cool. Let's see how do you write that again. Awesome. Liang, which is cooling or cool. We have the vertical and the second part. Okay. Same thing. Vertical, 1/3. The main part, 2/3. Okay. Whenever you want to start off with a dot on the top, right? This one. So just exceed this starting point of the vertical. So that means it must be above this top vertical. Because just think of it like a hat. Okay, you have this one. And then now your line right here. Now this line, you should not exceed this starting point of the vertical. And then your mouth is somewhere in the middle. And you want to start off the xiao in the middle, followed by your left and your right. Okay, now let's see how do you write that again. Your vertical, your head, the line, the mouth, the xiao, and your left and right. Awesome. Hi, and welcome to today's lesson. We will be focusing on some common everyday words based on the vertical 三点水, which is 3 drops of water. When you see the 3 drops of water, immediately you can say, this character has something to do with water. Let's learn how to write river. River, what does it consist of? Water. So that's why you have the 3 drops of water. Okay, now let us see how do you write the 3 drops of water. We have the 点 and we have another 点, okay, which is a little bit shorter than the previous 点. Remember the sandwich concept. Whatever is in the middle, it needs to be a little bit shorter than the top and bottom. And lastly, we will have the 提, okay, rising up. And it will be a little bit longer than the top one. So whatever that is at the bottom will be a little bit longer. Cool. That's how you write the 三点水, the 3 drops of water. Okay, and that is your radical part. Let us see the second part, which is this section right here. Okay, let's start off with our 可. Okay, here is our horizontal line. Just be mindful that it needs to align somewhere right here, okay, in the middle of this. As long as it does not go on top of the starting point of this 点, then you should be fine. As long as it's somewhere right here. Okay. Now let us do our box. The box will always be in the middle of everything. And then our vertical line and hook. Awesome. Our 3 dots, our box, and our hook. 河 river. 河. Let's learn how to write the sea. 海. Okay? Cool. There's 2 parts, our radical and this part. Okay? This part in Mandarin Chinese, as some of you might already recognize, oh, isn't this 每个 every 每 okay? Every. So you can just imagine every time when you see the sea, there will be water, isn't it? This is the 每. Okay? The 每 every day, 每天 每个 everyone, everything, 每. Okay? When you see the sea, there will always be water. So that's why 海 always have water. Cool. Now let us see, how do you write that? We have our 3 dots, our sandwich, okay, and our T. Now let us position everything. You need to plan everything that so that the posture and the stroke orders are correctly done. Okay, so our 撇, you must align it. You can make a little bit up top so it exceeds the starting point here. It doesn't matter as long as it's not way to exceed the case, more or less is within that range, so it should be fine. And this horizontal line right here, okay, it should be somewhere in the middle of this dot right here. So yeah, just position everything. Okay, now let us write the 母 part. Okay, let us write our L first. This creates the structure and the position of everything. And then we will have this part right here. And we have the hook. Okay, so now, as you can see, we already have the position where our box is ready. Now let's put stuff inside. Okay, we have a dot inside. And now we need to put some cupboards or shell or whatever, however, that will help you to memorize it. And then we have a dot right here. Okay, just make sure that this line, okay, that one that separates the line, has to be long enough. Okay, and finally, then you have this dot right here, right? Okay, cool. As long as everything does not exceed this line, okay, like the starting point right here. So as long as the position looks fine, you don't go more or less too much, then your position is fine. Okay, now let's see how do you write that again. We have our 3 dots. Cool. Hi. See. Now let's learn how to write wash, which is 洗. You want to wash your hands, you want to wash your plates or whatever. Wash, 洗. Because washing have to deal with water, that's why you have your 3 dots. Now let's see how do you write that in Chinese. We have our water component and we have this second part, which is 先. Some of you may already say, isn't this 先, which means first? Yes, indeed. So when you combine it together, wash, First things first, you need water. Huh. Okay. So let's see how do you write that. We have our 3 dots, the water part. Okay. Now let's write 先. Always position yourself so everything should align with one another. Okay, as you can notice, okay, this line don't go across this line, this starting point of our water, so it should be fine. And now, okay, the division, okay, it must be in the middle. Remember everything, and any line, okay, it will be in the middle. And now, finally, here. And then lastly, the hook. Drag and hook up. Okay, see. Let's see how to write that again. Our 3 dots and our xian water first. When you want to wash something, obviously you need to look for water first. Awesome. Hi, and welcome to today's lesson. We will be focusing on the common everyday words based on the radical 火, which is fire. So this radical can appear in its full form 火 or in its simplified form where you can see all those dots when it's at the bottom of a character. Okay, when you see this kind of character, it indicates that the character has something to do with fire, heat, or light. Let's break it up and see how do we write 火. Okay, as you can see, I put a fire there. When you have fire, you will have sticks and you have all sorts of flames, right? So there we go. Okay, always start from the left. This is the solid rule. We will have this one, then we have our right, and in between. So that's why when you want to write your words, just try to plan your writing, your positions. So now, okay, in between you will have this, and lastly our na. Okay, it looks like a fire. Okay, left, right, in the middle, drag down and drag down to the right. Cool. 火. This is the normal version of 火. When we want to turn it into a radical, as you can see, the 火, it's shrunk into a mini size, right? Let's see how do we write that. Okay, 2 or 3 components. Let's do this. Our 火 radical is shrunk. Okay, it's a little bit smaller. Just like the word 零, okay, you will see that this 那 over here, it is a little bit smaller. Okay, and now we have this part and this part, top and bottom part. Okay, so let us write our 火, our 烧. 烧 means to burn. Okay, when you're burning something, obviously you need fire. So that's why you have the fire radical. Okay, we have the 火, dot, and then there's fire. And make sure that our fire dot here is a little bit smaller. Okay, now let us look at the top part. This is a T, okay, from left to right. Some of you, when you look at the instruction, you might not able to see which direction to write. So that's why I'm showing you from left to right. Every time when you want to draw a horizontal line, sorry, it needs to start from left to right, not right to left. Okay, from left to right. Left to right. Okay, and now let us drag the thingy down and our hook, and finally we'll have this here. Okay, so this is our first part, and now the bottom part. You see our box literally divides everything, so you know where do you um where do you need to plan your words. Okay, so this part is going to be at the bottom, and this one is going to be on top. Okay, now let us see how do you write that again in Mandarin Chinese. Our fire, cool, shao, burn. Lamp, lamp in the olden days they need fire, so that's why we have the fire. This is a much easier one. The previous one, shao, well, as long as you like barbecue, shao kao, you will recognize it immediately. But anyway, now let's talk about deng, which is lamp. So this one, compared to the previous shao, it's much more easier. You have the fire and you have something that looks like a T with a hook. Okay, so let's write our deng. Here's our fire. Let's drag it down. And right here we have the now let us start with our T. So this T, the starting point, as long as it is somewhere aligned with this fire dot here, it must never ever exceed this line. Okay, so you need to leave some space on top. So as you can see, some of them may ask me, well, why is this computer generated letter looks like this? It is because traditionally, okay, we do leave space right here, but modern Chinese, they want to make everything look glamorous, they want to make everything look clean, simplified, or uniform, so that's why they try to make everything like aligned with one another. But traditionally we do need to leave some space on top. Okay, so now finally our hook. Okay, that's our lamp. Deng. Let's write it. Cool. This is the 4 dots of fire. Now, the 4 dots of this fire are scattered, but they must not feel disjointed, okay? So it looks like a bonfire, don't you feel like that? So the way how we write it, okay, it can reveal a lot about our personality or our habits or styles, okay? Over time, everyone develops their own way of writing, okay? So traditionally, it's going to be left, right, right, right. Okay. So it's fascinating because some of these little quirks, okay, like it makes our own handwriting uniquely ours. Some people might like to do uh, to the left and then to the right, and suddenly the ending part, okay, which is this one, suddenly someone will like to end it with to the left. It is just merely their personal style. That is how they like to write it. But let us just stick to the basics, okay? The basic or the traditional way is to the left and then to the right, to the right, to the right. Cool. Awesome. I really look forward to see how you would develop your own handwriting. Let's write 热, which is hot. A lot of words are associated with hot, for example, hot soup, 热汤, or hot water, 热水. Yeah, but anyway, let's see how do you write 热 in Mandarin Chinese. Okay, there are two parts. Let's break it nicely so you can see this part. Okay, remember I told you anything that is at the bottom, okay, whether it is the three dots, I mean the four dots, or the 心字底, okay, so the radical should take 1/3 of the character. So this is the main part, okay, which is right here. This is going to be the main part. Okay, now let's start to write it. Always start to draw your line from left to right. So we have from left to right, and then we will have the drag down and hook, and we have the T, which is the rising one, the rising stroke. Okay, now the P. Okay, so somewhere it will hit the middle, and now this stroke, just be mindful the starting point of this stroke. Let me just use a different color. The starting point of this stroke, okay, should be underneath or somewhere, okay, in between, just a little bit underneath, okay, the ending part of this top vertical, I mean this horizontal stroke right here. So you make some space. As long as it's a little bit underneath, then you should be fine. Okay, and lastly, let us end it with our 点 right here. Okay, 点 will always be from left to right. Okay, cool. Now let us finish off with our bonfire. To the left, to the right, to the right, to the right. And that's how you write 热 in Mandarin Chinese. Okay, let's see that in action again. Awesome. Hi, and welcome to today's lesson. We will be looking at the common everyday words based on the radical mu, which means wood or tree. It is a fundamental component in many Chinese characters, and when you look at the radical, it's commonly referred to as the 木字旁 or the 木字底, depending on where you position the Chinese character. Hi and welcome. Today we are going to be looking at the common everyday words based on the radical 土, which means earth or soil or ground. Okay, let us write the normal 土 before I show you how do you write the mini version. Okay, the normal 土, basically we write across and we end off with a large horizontal line. Okay, few tips. The top horizontal line, it's always shorter than the bottom one because we end it with a high note, right? We end it off. Okay, awesome. Now let's see how do you write that in action. We have the cross and end off with a long horizontal line. Cool. Now that is the normal version of earth or soil or ground. Let's write the mini version, which is the 土字旁, which is the earth or soil radical on the side. Now, please be mindful because we are writing it as a radical, so that's why we are shrinking it. Mini version. Okay, so when you see anything with the 土字旁, which is the 土 radical, so this indicates that it has some sort of connection to earth or ground or location. Okay. Right. Let us build on it and let's write 地, which is ground or earth. We have the mini 土 followed by the 野. Okay. Let's see how to write that again. Awesome. In China, you'll find places or signs have to do something with 场, that means field or places. So let's see. We have the mini 土 and we have the second part. Okay. 3 parts. We have the vertical. We have the top part. That looks like a 7. And then we have the bottom part. Let's break it down and write them. Okay. We have the mini 土. Okay. This looks like a kick. Aha. Now the top part, which is like a mini 7. So you just have to be mindful that this ending side must not exceed this top 土. Okay, so there is your guideline. Okay. Now the giant outer chord, and we have a hook. Okay, and now let us deal with the 撇. Okay, the diagonal stroke. The top one is a little bit shorter than the bottom one. Okay. Now let us see how do you write that again. We have the 土. Awesome. So that's your word 场, which is field or places. Cheng means city. So if you go to China, there will be a lot of signs saying whatever, Cheng. Cheng means city. Okay, let's see how do you write this word. We have the 图 and we have the 成. Okay, our radical 图 and 成. This part actually means success. So on top of a ground that is success, therefore there is a city. Okay, now let's see how do you write that. Tips: always start your horizontal line. Okay, as long as it's a little bit on top of the top chunk this line, then your proportion is fine. And you drag it down. As long as it does not exceed this point, it's fine. And now let's see how do you write this part and where should you start. This thing that looks like a 7, okay, and you have the hook. As long as it does not exceed this point, your ending line for your stroke, then you should be fine. Okay, and now let us start with this line over here. It must be in the middle. So when you drag it down and you have that hook, okay, we are almost there. Now the line right here, as long as it does not exceed this part, okay, it does not exceed this part, it does not exceed the final ending part of the tool, then you should be fine. And lastly, we will have our dot, which is on top. As long as this dot does not exceed our ending line for our horizontal line here, does not exceed this part, does not exceed this part, then it should be fine. Now let's write it again. We have our 图 and we have our 成. Awesome. Hi, and welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to be looking at the common everyday words that's based on the radical 口, which is mouth. So anything that has to do with the mouth, obviously it's going to be eating, singing, drinking, all sorts. When you see the word 口, you know it has to be something to do with mouth. When we want to write 口 as the radical, which is now 口字旁, we shrink it. Remember, normally when we want to write 口, it's going to be a giant box, but now we want to turn it into a radical, so we basically turn it into a mini box, which is going to be on the left hand side. And the proportion must be right. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, and it must not exceed the 1/3 line, so it's going to be somewhere right here. Okay, let's write the word 吃. Let's start off with our radical and the second part. Okay, our 1/3 radical and our second part, which must not exceed 2/3. Okay, this part means 起, means to plead, to ask. So when you look at this word, asking for mouth, so you're asking for something to eat. Okay, few tips on how to write this word. Okay, our starting point must always exceed the 口. You see, must exceed this point. Okay, so just a little bit higher than our point. Okay, and the joining line in the middle, which must not exceed the same corner. This is to help you to get your proportions right. Okay, cool. Now, the last part is always going to be in the middle. And then you make your turn. And your another turn and your hook. Okay, few things. Just keep in mind that this point right here mustn't exceed the top line right here. Okay, as long as you get the proportion so your words won't look weird. Now let's see how do you write that again. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Drinking it's much difficult than 吃. Okay, let's see how do you write that. Okay, we have 3 parts. We have the vertical, we have the top part, and we have the bottom part, right? So don't worry. Let's see how do we write this word step by step. Okay, we have the code, right? Just create that box. It's always going to be the 1/3 on the left. Now let's start off with the top part. Basically, it is another box, but this time we add something inside and we close the door. Okay, now the bottom part. Okay, the bottom part just a little bit to the left. Okay, and we kind of have like a hook and we draw a run inside the box, and lastly we draw an L. Cool, easy. Let's see it in action. We have the ko, and then we have the r on top, and we have this final part. Awesome. Let's write an easy one. One, which means to ask. You are asking something. Basically, it is a men and a ko. Men, it is the outer frame. Okay, which is this one. Men, it means door. Men. And we have the ko, which is the mouth. So basically, you may think that inside a room you have a mouth. That's why you ask, because you're stuck inside a room. Okay, cool. Let's see how do you write that. The top part, always remember to make space. Cool. Hi, and welcome to today's lesson. We will be looking at some common everyday words based on the radical sing. Sing means heart. So when you look at these type of characters, you will know that it's associated with emotions, thoughts, and the mind. There are 2 ways of turning the sing into a radical. Now, in this case, we call it a 竖心旁 when it appears on the left-hand side. And please take note, this is the simplified form of the heart. Okay. Let us just quickly draw it. So we have the 1/3 position, right? Okay. So first things first, we have the vertical line, okay, which is the mini version. And then we have a long vertical line, and now we have the dot. Few things that you need to know. The dot, the ending part, must not exceed the first vertical line. Okay, now let's see how do you write that in action. This, the long line, and now dot. Okay, let's start by writing the word mang, which is busy. Interesting enough, we have the hard radical and we have the second part of the component, which is wang, W-A-N-G. The wang by itself, okay, it is a word by itself meaning dead. So it's very funny when you look at it, your heart is dead. That's how busy you are. Okay, anyway, let's start to plan how to write the word mang. Okay, we have our radical. Always plan position so that you can see which word, which strokes, okay, should be somewhere. You just need to position them nicely. Okay, so let's start with the second component. The starting point of this dot, it must not exceed the top part of the starting point of that long vertical line. And our horizontal line must not exceed the starting point of our mini vertical line. And finally, we have the L-like shape. Okay. Okay. As long as the ending stroke does not exceed the top part. Okay. So it should be fine. Now, I want to show you something on your left hand side, which is the computer generated mang. You will notice and you may ask me, why are there space in between like this part when you are writing in Chinese? And why is the computer generated font this ending line, it's aligned with the ending stroke of this vertical line, right? Okay, that is because computer generated fonts, they want to make everything simple, neat, and they have this uniformity, whereas the proper Chinese writing, okay, you should leave some space in between. So this is the correct version, okay? So you need to leave some space here in between, okay? Cool. Let's learn how to write "ting," which is emotions in Mandarin Chinese. This emotion, we can talk about a friendship, we can talk about relationship, family, and all sorts. So you can see there are two components. We have the heart, and some of you might already recognize, isn't that green in Mandarin Chinese? Yes, qing, okay, which is green. So you can think of it like, okay, my heart is always green. That is my relationship to you. Green in Mandarin Chinese symbolize everlasting. It's prosperous. So that is why we put the heart and the green together. Okay. So now let us start to plan our writing. Okay, our positions. We have our radical, and then we have this dot. And now for the second part. Okay, please pay attention to this. We need to make some space when we start to write the horizontal line, because you need to ensure that your vertical line, which is the starting point of the vertical line, must not exceed the starting point of this vertical line next to it. So you see, okay, when you have this posture, okay, you cannot be on over the top of it. Okay, and lastly, you close it. Okay, another tips I want to tell you, okay, you see this tree, 1, 2, and 3, right? Imagine this is like a sandwich, okay? The top part is like the piece of bread, and the middle one, it is like the filling. So the filling must always be a little bit smaller or shorter than the bread, otherwise everything is going to be overflow, isn't it? Okay, so just think of it like a sandwich. Okay, the top line must be a little bit uh longer than the middle one, okay, and the last piece of bread, which is this one, okay, must be a little bit longer. In fact, it must be the longest out of the three. Okay, now let's continue with our bottom part. Okay, as you can see on your your left hand side, this qing here, this starting point of the yue, okay, is like one straight line down, and then the fact that it has joined all the lines together. However, in the proper handwritten Chinese, this starting stroke here, okay, which is supposed to be a curve, the pie, it should have some sort of a curvy element, okay, appear, and then you draw this, okay. And lastly, take note, you do not need to join the lines to our vertical line. You need to allow some space in between, okay. So basically you are doing like this. You leave some space in between. Computer generated words, they want to make everything look neat and nice. Everything must be symmetrical, and everything must be perfect. So that's why they join all the lines together. However, in handwritten form, we leave space in between here. We will leave the space. That's how you write it. Okay, so cool. Let's see how to write qing in Mandarin Chinese. We have the vertical and our qing. Remember the little curve, and remember to make space. Leave some space in between. Okay. Other than our left hand vertical, the xing can also appear at the bottom of a character. And how do you do that? Okay, so when there are characters that have xing at the bottom of the character, this is what we call the xing zidi, right? You need to plan your posture and the position of everything. So normally our xing would be at the bottom of the box, and it will be the 1/3 of the box. So we leave most space right here, so we can start write those words on top. Okay, and you will see that it starts right here, okay, our dot, okay, ending to the left, our drag and hook, okay, our dot and our dot. Okay, let's see how do you write that again. Cool. Now let us see what kind of words are associated with 心字底. 心, which means heart, 字, which means letter, 底 means bottom. 心字底 means heart at the bottom. The most common word, it will be 想, which means think. Now let's see how do you write that. Okay, let's start to plan. We have three parts. We have the wood, which is the mu, and we have the mu, okay, which is the eye, and we have the heart. I would like to encourage you to use your imagination when you are thinking. You are standing like a pole of wood and your eyes are looking at something, it's staring at some far, far away galaxy, and lastly, your heart and soul, it is somewhere. That is the picture of someone thinking. Okay, now let's see. How do you write this in Mandarin Chinese? We have the wood, the mu. Did you notice the wood is now the mini size wood? That is because now we want to pair them up together. Okay, and let us see, the wood will always be on the top left corner. And now let's start with our eyes, our mu. Okay, somewhere in the middle. And please take note, you must leave space. Don't join them together. Okay. And now, lastly, our heart. Our one dot here, our drag and hook up, our dot and our dot. Okay, and that is how you write 想 in Mandarin Chinese. Awesome. Hi, and welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to be looking at common everyday words based on the radical 女. Let's start by writing the word 女. Now, this is the normal form of 女. Okay, few things that need your attention in computer wording. Okay, as you see on your left hand side, this one, you will notice Hi and welcome. Today, let's look at some common everyday words based on the radical yan, which is speech. Yan, it is translated to speech or words in English. It is used in many characters related to speaking, language, and communication. Now, as a radical, okay, today we'll be learning the simplified version. In the traditional version, okay, you will see yan as it is, okay, it will appear just like that as a radical. But now let us learn the simplified version of the 言字旁, which is the 言 radical. Okay, now as you just saw how it was written, okay, you see we have a dot right here. Okay, and now instead of that 3 lines, 1, 2, 3, and then we have the mouth, okay, which is the 言. Okay, in this case, the simplified version is basically one dot and one straight line, which makes it very easy to write. Okay, so now let us start to write our radical. So we have our dot on top, and then we have a small horizontal line, and we drag it down, and we will have the hook. So this is the simplified version of 言, okay, which will be our radical. Let's see how do you write that again. We have our dot and this part. Nice and easy. Okay. Let's build on it and write the word 话, which is word or speech. Some of you might already recognize that, you see, we have this 言 radical, and this part, it is tongue, 舌. When you combine together, we will get 话, the word or speech. Obviously, you need your tongue to speak out words, isn't it? Okay, so now let us write our 话. We have our dot, and then we have our yen, this, and drag and go up. Okay, now as we have come to the point, okay, you should know that every time when we want to write our Chinese characters, we need to proportion everything. So let us have this pier, okay, which needs to align, okay, more or less around this line, okay. Just make sure it does not exceed the starting point of the dot, okay, then you should be fine. And now we have our horizontal line again. Now in this case, this horizontal line must be above the middle box, which is this line here. Okay, as long as it's above the middle line, then you are in the correct position. The reason being because we still have a box that we need to draw at the bottom. Okay, we have a cross right here now. Now let us draw our box. And we close it. Okay, so that's how you write 话 in Mandarin Chinese, which is the words and your tongue. Okay, let's write it. Although, drag it up. 话, word or speech. Now let's learn how to write 说, which is to speak. To speak, okay, in this case, you will find something very interesting. We have our words and this part over here. It means to fulfill. So you need to fulfill what you have said. Therefore, 说. If you can't fulfill what you have said, so why even bother speaking? So 说, speak. We have our radical and we have our 对, which is to fulfill. Okay, let us start to write. Our dot. This is our radical, and now let us fulfill what is needed. Okay, as long as these lines did you notice something like when I am doing this, okay? This na is a little bit shorter than this pie. Let me use a different color. Okay, just be mindful that our pie right here needs to be a little bit longer than our na on the left. Okay, and just quickly draw it so you can see. Okay, have to be a little bit longer. Now let us do our box. As long as it's somewhere in the middle, you must not exceed the middle line, then you should be fine. And then we have our pie again, which is our left falling. And lastly, this hook and go up. Okay, that's how you write 说 in Mandarin Chinese. Let's see that in action again. Our radical and our fulfillment. Awesome. Let's learn 语, which is language. Well, you will find this word in whatever language you're trying to learn. For example, Chinese, 汉语, or Korean, 韩语, or English, 英语. So this 语 is the language of English, the language of Chinese, the language of Korean, whatever. So here is our yen, and then the second part. Okay. Let's break it up. Okay, here is our radical, and interesting enough, this in the Mandarin Chinese, it means I am, that kind of I. So it is, when you look at it, basically you can take it, my words, 语 language, my words, language. Okay, now let us write the radical again, and let us plan the proportion, right? Okay, so basically you can see this part here is a 5 and this one here is a mouth, right? Okay, now let us break it and write it. So always left to right, and you must not exceed this line over here. Okay, and now the second part, which is this line. Okay, make sure it is somewhere a little bit within the range of this line right here. Okay, the second part, so it should be fine as long as you plan it properly. You see more or less, okay, where is position, then you should be fine. And this line you must not exceed, okay, the top horizontal line. Okay, so remember the sandwich concept, so it must be a little bit shorter. Now let us continue. We have a line right here, and we have our finishing piece. Okay, let us just draw and use a different color. Okay, every time when you want to end off with something, the horizontal line is a little bit longer than the one on top. Okay, so now it's finished and it will be in the middle, so that's why you need to proportion yourself that it needs to be in the middle. And finally, our mouth, you use your mouth to speak, so that's why you will have a mouth. Okay, and now there's your box. Awesome. Now let us see how do we write it again. Let us just learn the stroke orders. Our dot, drag down, hook up. As long as you get the proportion right, it's fine. Perfect. Hi and welcome. Today we will be looking at some common everyday words based on the radical ch, which is car. When you see this type of words, immediately you will know that this word has something to do with vehicles or transportation or movement. Let's look at car in its normal form.